Hi there, this is video number 5 in our 5-part series on evaluating your sources. And this video is going to focus on privilege and bias in both research and the writing. And the first thing we want to look at is whether a differing opinion would result in a different conclusion. And in this article, I didn't see opinion. I did see a lot of information backed up by sources and data that tell you why they believe a certain way. Another thing we want to look at is whether they're only showing one side. And until you're very experienced with reading a lot of research articles, sometimes it can be really hard to tell. But I do have a tip. Look for some sort of statement about limitations of the research. And that is in our introduction in this particular article. Sometimes it's further down, sometimes it's in the conclusion, or sometimes it's just not there at all, which can leave you kind of grasping, trying to figure out whether this is a biased article. But this one says right here, there's limited country-specific literature regarding the policy implications of autonomous vehicles and the governance response to autonomous vehicles. They're telling you right now, there's not a ton of data out there, but they did gather data from as many different sources as they could from many different countries, making it a much more well-rounded article than one that only focuses on US-specific legislation. So we want to kind of see, are they only sharing sources that fit a preconceived notion that they had when they started their research? Are they sharing different viewpoints? And you really want to see if an article is objective or is it subjective. Subjectivity isn't always bad, but it can lead you to a biased conclusion. And even in this article, in another spot in the conclusion, it does say that had there been more data available, they may have come to a different conclusion. So they're being upfront with it. They're not trying to hide anything from you. Another thing that we like to do is compare to another article that's on a similar topic. So this one is Preparing a Nation for Autonomous Vehicles, and it includes policy recommendations, which is what the primary focus of our original article is. And when I scroll down a little bit, even in their abstract, they're already starting to address some of the same issues about needing to have more government oversight in order to expand research in these areas and create a safer system for autonomous vehicles, determining appropriate standards for liability, security, and data privacy, among other things. So right off the bat with this one, we can already see we're on a similar track, and it kind of helps us to know that it's less biased because we're seeing multiple articles that say the same thing. And this second article was published a few years before the first one. The next thing that we want to know is whether the author of the article or authors are publishing in a field that they are experts in. And with this one, we look at the first author, and it's telling his information where he works, which is a school of public policy, which is absolutely in line with the focus of this article. The secondary author is as well. So they are writing in a field that they are knowledgeable about. They're not saying they're autonomous vehicle experts, but they are policy experts. Now let's compare that to our Motor Biscuit website. And we're going to go ahead and click on the author's name. And he tells us right here that he's an automotive journalist. He's an engineering dropout. And it doesn't say anything about policy expert. So we can already kind of tell this is most likely not a source that we would want to use, even based on the other information that we already had. And then finally, privilege can also play quite a role in research, and it's not always easy to spot with the harder sciences. It's definitely a lot easier to see it in the social sciences, where maybe an author is part of a majority group, but they're writing about a minority group. So they're already writing it from a position of privilege. And a lot of times in these articles, they are talking about this minority group, but don't always show the inside experience of that group. And we want to make it more balanced by including as much as we can about the group that we're writing about. And another thing that you can do with that is when an article is written about a minority group, try to find articles also written by that minority group to balance out your sources. And this can really help you cut down on the bias that's involved, but as well as the privilege. So these are just some things to think about when you're going forward with your own research. And if you ever need help evaluating your sources or locating sources, please contact Kettering University Library. You can email us at library@kettering.edu or come see us in the Learning Commons.